GOP debate in Iowa, I asked all the candidates the question whether they would accept this deal in which Democrats agreed to $10 in real spending cuts for every $1 in tax increases. Every single hand on the stage went up, saying they would walk away from that deal opposing any tax increases. Now, I was expecting some of them to push back or to ask for time for a nuanced answer. They didn't. There was no pushback. So when Democrats complain about ideological rigidity or stubbornness in the modern Republican Party, do they have a point?
Well, look, first, with due respect to your question, that was a question that had a predictable answer to it. And that kind of a thing, when you're asking people to raise their hand and not offering them a chance to give a nuanced answer, you're going to get raising hands. Let me go back to what Bill said, though, and set the record straight.
Hold on. I mean, we gave him the opportunity.
He said,
you know, so I mean,
with all due respect, Brett, with all due respect, that was a lousy question for a debate. And if you wanted to get a better answer, ask that question to the candidates individually.
These guys are running for president of the United States. They can't talk to Brett Baer about what their vision is for how to deal with the economy.
Let's set the records. Let's set the record straight about what Bill said earlier about rigidity. Yes, there's rigidity in our political system, and it starts with the President of the United States. Republicans had ideas to try and make the stimulus bill better. And in a meeting in the White House, maybe Bill was even in the room, President Obama dismissed Eric Cantor's suggestions about how to make the bill better by saying, I won. This president had a Democrat Congress, I repeat, by overwhelming margin for 2 years and got everything he wanted. Now, what have the Republicans done this year? The Republicans have insisted. The president set up a political battle. He had the votes in November and December of last year to get his, quote, clean debt ceiling. But instead, he said he wanted the Republicans to, quote, have ownership in the deficit. So he waited until there was a Republican House and then tried to jam them, insisting on a clean debt ceiling. The Republicans said, we want to have deficit reduction before we vote for an increase in the debt ceiling. They got it. The president applauded that bill and signed it. So, you know, I love it. The Republicans passed a budget. The Democrats in the Senate haven't. The Republicans have passed a slew of job-creating measures, and the Democrats in the Senate haven't. And the president now sits here and lectures us about how we need to take action. Well, what is his action? He has yet to put pen to paper and issue a jobs plan or a deficit reduction plan in the last 9 months.
You know, Karl,
so please don't talk to me about ideological rigidity.
Karl,
it comes from
I appreciate that you have
White
an opinion
House
on this, Karl. But as someone who was a leader in a White House that turned a record surplus into a deficit, that got us involved in a war that we never should have been in, and turned the floor of the New York Stock Exchange into a casino, I don't think the American people are quite ready to hear a lecture from you on good governance.
Hold on, Bill. What about the question? Hold on, Karl. Wait a second.
I appreciate the insults. I appreciate the insults, Bill, but they don't do anything to advance it. And as a fact of the matter, is you talk about the financial difficulties we had in 2008. I remember your boss coming to the United States Senate in 2005 and blocking the bill that attempted to rein in Fannie and Freddie while we still had time to stop the disaster from coming. And your man joined in a filibuster by every Democrat of the reform bill and then turned around in October of 2008 and finally belatedly voted for it. Okay. And you want to criticize the Iraq war? You've got a Secretary of State in your administration who voted for it.
Okay, let me just ask the question that he posed originally, and that is the plan. That is a lot of people asking where is the plan? They're waiting on this speech. The Senate Democrats have not passed a budget in X number of days, almost 2 years. What about answering that part of Karl's charge?
Okay, so that piece of the question, what has the president done to create jobs? There are things that he could sign into law right now if Congress would move forward on them. The payroll tax, the infrastructure bank, trade deals.
Well, the trade deals are still in the White House, according to Republicans on Capitol Hill, that they haven't sent them over from the White House to Senator McConnell.
Okay,
that's what they're saying.
okay.
So that's one thing that's not over.
The point is that there are things that Congress could do right now that could help to create jobs. And you're going to hear from the president very soon on more ideas that he has about this. And just back to one thing that Karl said. Karl, yeah, I was in that meeting where the president made that point to Eric Cantor. And the point was, yes, elections have consequences. And what the president needs in Washington are partners who will work with him to actually make progress in this country, not just people like Eric Cantor and John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, who would much rather see the economy do poorly so that they could score political points than see America succeed.
Bill, With all due respect, do not question the motivations and the integrity of the people on the other side. It's a really bad way to try and get partners. When you
I don't
say
think
to
all
them,
due respect means
I don't
what you think
have,
it means,
we
Karl.
can't have a political disagreement without me questioning your motivations. That's not a way to get partners.
All right,
Mitch McConnell said that his number one job was to make America lose.
You mentioned a series
Michelle
of
Bachmann said
ideas.
lower
The
unemployment would
Democrats
help her
are
campaign.
opposing. The
Rush
Democrats
Limbaugh
are
said,
opposing the infrastructure bill
Everybody's
that you
gotta
talked
stop.
about. And the president has yet to lay out. The president has yet to lay out a plan. You mentioned the infrastructure bank. Democrats have opposed the infrastructure bank, saying we don't have more money that the government can lend to bail out certain businesses.
Karl, the president has laid out a
Forget
plan.
it.
You still
There's
like
no
it.
enthusiasm
There's a
for
difference
it.
between whether or not there's a plan and whether or not Karl Rove endorses it.
The president has talked about, yeah, there is no plan. The president has talked briefly, sort of raised a little bit of the curtain to suggest that he's going to ask for an extension of the payroll tax holiday. Temporary tax cuts don't encourage economic growth. We've had a payroll tax this year, and have we gotten robust economic growth as a result? No.
Okay, I'm trying to be the traffic cop
on
here.
the infrastructure bank.
And there's a little delay, Karl, so I know you can't hear right away when I try to jump in, and I'm sure that's why you haven't stopped when I have.
Not really.
You just
Brett,
keep it going? Yeah. Let me ask you some politics. If you had to put money on the fact that, or whether Sarah Palin gets into this race or not, what would you say?
Well, I'm not much of a gambler, but I'd put a little bit more money that she gets in than that she doesn't, because the schedule she's got next week in Iowa, it looks like that of a candidate, not a celebrity. Her difficulty is if she doesn't get in shortly after next week, then I think people are going to basically say she's not in, she won't be in, and if she gets in, I'm not going to be for her. You can only tease so many times in the political process, and I think she's getting to the end of that. But next week, she's got a robust schedule, and this video on Friday that was released by her campaign strikes me, or by her PAC, strikes me as a pre-presidential campaign
And
effort.
Karl, the Weekly Standard reported this week that you've been talking to Paul Ryan about his potential presidential bid. How serious is he?
Well, I don't know. That's up to Paul to decide. All I know is that from talking to people around the country who've picked up the phone and called him and told him what they think, that there are a lot of serious people. He's getting a lot of pressure, as is Governor Christie of New Jersey. And my suspicion is that both of them are going to have to give at least some consideration to the kind of encouragement they're getting.
Bill, who do Democrats fear most?
You know, there's legend in the Democratic Party that back in 1980, Jimmy Carter's folks were really hoping to run against Ronald Reagan. So I don't want to sit here and say that there's one candidate that we want or don't want, but what we do know from the field is that no matter who it is, he or she is going to want to essentially gut and end Medicare. They'll all want to end the EPA, and they'll all want to put radical conservatives on the Supreme Court.
Bill, Reuters reported this week that Governor Rick Perry is, quote, seen by Obama's top election fundraisers, supporters, and senior Democrats close to the campaign as easier to beat. I was praying Perry would get in the race, said a former White House aide closely linked to Obama's campaign. There are only a few people who fit that title. You're one of them. Why would Perry be so easy to beat?
Well, I don't know that Perry would necessarily be easy to beat. No matter who the Republican is, there's going to be a lot of money. Karl Rove can raise a lot of cash for the outside to help them get elected. But here's what you should know about Rick Perry, that when the health care debate got hot, he said that Texas should secede. He said that the Fed chair was guilty of treason. And he's got a job record that's a lot more spotty than people would suggest. He took a state that was at 4.2% unemployment, got it to 8.2%. The job growth that we've seen there is 40% minimum wage jobs, and the rest of them are fueled by stimulus dollars. So I think that there's a case to be made against Rick Perry, but whoever the Republican nominee is, I'm certain that it's going to be a close and contested race.
Karl, your response to that? There's a conventional wisdom is that there's some feud between the Bush folks and the Perry folks, but your response to Bill here?
Well, Bill is going to, I want you to keep drumming those lines, Bill, because if Perry is the nominee, Texas has led the country in job creation over this past decade.
With the help of the federal government.
We've been in a 30-year period in which we have been growing rapidly in jobs, and we're now the 10th fastest growing in terms of personal income. This state has got a robust, dynamic economy that's caused 3 million people to move here. Go ahead and attack it all you like, but people are voting with their feet and moving to Texas from all across the country because of the robust economy. But, you know, look, the president is in deep trouble. He is last week twice hit 39% in the Gallup poll. No president has hit 39%, hit under 40 at this point in his presidency, and been reelected since 1948. And as try as he might, I don't think Barack Obama is going to be able to pull off Harry S. Truman.
Karl Rove, Bill Burton, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Brett.
Up next, presidential politics with Rick Santorum. He's trying to capitalize on his